Hello everyone. I just wanted to share some information that I've learned here working on my project. I'm working on a 460 for 77 F250, and I had some oil leaks before I started taking everything apart. And I pulled the rear main seal out here, pulled the oil pan off and the cap, and I noticed that this was put in here incorrectly. This is the new seal. I took the old one out, just, well, I'm in there, might as well put a new one in. But there was nothing wrong with the old one, it was just put in wrong. Basically, the main focus of this video I wanted to show you was the crush depth when you hear people talk about that. I've read it on some forums and stuff, but I haven't really seen a whole lot of videos or pictures or anything. Basically, what they're talking about is if you look at if you put the seal in and put it flush on one side, and you see how far it protrudes on the other side, that's the crush depth that they're talking about. Whenever you put the cap back on and torque it down, that seal expands and it'll torque the seal, and you'll start getting those slow oil leaks again if you put it in with too much crush allowance. So what I did was take a feeler gauge. I didn't have a proper feeler gauge with me, so I just used this spark plug gauge. And when I first put it in out of the package, it had about 0.05 clearance on each side. And if you can see, that's quite a bit when you consider on the cap here and on the block. So I took my little Dremel tool. You can take a flat file and do it. Don't try to cut it with wire cutters or a razor or anything. You'll just cut it too far and you have to go buy another pack. So just grind it down, and then once you get it in there, the correct allowance is 0.015-ish on the end there. Since I'm using this gauge, I got it down to 0.01, since that's as far as it goes on each side. So the one in the block and the one in the cap here both have a 0.01 allowance on it. And I already put that one in on the block, and that's what you want to get for the proper crush depth. The other thing to note with this is you don't want to install the seal like this, flush on both sides, because you'll get oil leaking in between the cap and the block here. And even if you put some sealant in there, it'll still start leaking over time. So what you want to do is offset this by about 3/8 of an inch and just push it in there. You want to take a ruler, and if you don't have a ruler, you can use just a 3/8 socket, just so you have a ballpark on it. And you just want to get as close to that 3/8 as you can. About there. And the whole point of this is just to get that offset. So this creates a seal in between the block and the cap. And that'll keep it from leaking on you. Most of the time, that's what will cause it, especially on performance engines where you're putting a lot of pressure on it. The other thing to note here is to put the seal in correctly in the right direction. It's hard to see on the video, but there's a lip here on this seal that goes, and it's supposed to point towards the inside of the engine. If you look at the instructions on the Felpro package, it'll tell you. But you want to make sure that's facing the right direction. The last thing you want to do is put some silicone sealant on the end here on both sides, and that'll seal off that gap in between there, and make sure you don't have any burrs or anything on there. And then go ahead and put the cap back in and torque it down, and that should get rid of your oil leak. Make sure you coat this thing in oil before you put it in. That'll help seal it up. If you're not going to start the engine for a week or so, kind of like this one isn't going anywhere anytime soon, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some grease on it and put it back in, and that'll keep it nice and moist and sealed for the duration until I'm ready to crank it up again. So thanks for watching, guys, and happy to share the information with you. Thanks.